I think it's the LA Police Department. If you look at the LA Police Department compared to the racial makeup of LA, they're pretty equivalent, and they're pretty equivalent on purpose. They do that for a reason. So you got to get that. You got to continue to build those relationships so that we talk to one another. You know, we actually communicate with each other, because anytime, you know, I'm allowed to sit over here in my area and you're sitting over there in your area, we're building animosity. We build that kind of animosity between each other. And now the littlest thing. I mean, there was a woman that was killed in Minneapolis like 2-3 years ago. Do you remember this one?
Yes.
Female,
yes.
Like a yoga instructor, called the police. The police called the police to report a disturbance. The police showed up and there's no video, no footage. She gets killed by the cops. It's insane that these things happen. But we also have to remember like I said, what is a police officer thinking about? And what kind of training have we given them? And what kind of psychological screening, to your point, what kind of strike? And it's not just one-time psychological screening, because guess what? People get burnt out. And it happens at different times to different people. You take 35 guys in combat. I've got some guys at the end of a 6-month deployment, you know what they're telling me? Can I stay longer? I'm doing fine. You get 1 month into that deployment and you've got other guys that are saying, hey, do you need anyone to head home early? Right? That happens. So you think in a police force of 1,000 people or whatever size your police force is, you're going to have some people that are steady, mentally stable. They can deal with it. They can be in an officer-involved shooting today, and tomorrow they can go back to their job and be perfectly fine. There's other people, they could never work again after they're in an officer-involved shooting. What kind of investment are we making into this psychological health of police? And look, I hope it doesn't sound like I'm sitting here just putting it all on the police, because everyone is playing a role in this. And one of the things that you need to look at as well is how to get arrested, right? There should be a public service course on how you should get arrested. This is what you should do. If the cops are pulling you over, if the cops approach you about something, here's what you should think. One of the things you should think is, okay, this cop may not be bad. This cop may be looking out for my welfare right now. That's a great, hopeful thought. The other thing that you have to think is kind of worst case scenario. This cop might be agitated. This cop might be looking for somebody that fits my description. This cop might have just been in a fight with his wife. He might have just lost a partner. There's a million bad things. Use that scenario in your head. Use that scenario in your head to contemplate how you're going to interact with a police officer, which is, you know what they're looking at? They're looking at your hands. You know why? Because that's where the threat comes from. The threat comes from your hands. So when you're making quick movement with your hands, don't do that. Listen to what they say. Move slowly when you move. This should be public service. The police should be putting out, hey, if you interact with the police, we hate to have to say this, but since our police sometimes are in bad situations, here's some things we recommend and we highly suggest and we beg. We beg that you do this. We beg, because what happens to these cops when they kill somebody? What happens to them? Their lives are totally destroyed.
Well, that was the thing about that guy in Minneapolis. He'd already killed people. He'd already been involved in, I think it's at least 2 shootings, and he had more than a dozen complaints against him.
Yeah.
Not good.
Not good.
It's obvious by the end result.
Yeah.
That's the type of guy he was. It's pretty obvious by the fact that he was able to do that to a man. The guy's literally calling out to his dead mother. You know, I mean, the type of man that can stay on someone's neck while they're doing that when all that guy did was have a counterfeit $20 bill. That's it.
This is where, when you talk about psychological screening, and that's why I'm saying it has to be constant.
Yeah.
Because people change, right? And red flags. I mean, like you said, hindsight's 20/20. We're looking at this case now. We're going, oh, who the hell lets this guy continue to police? And by the way, interestingly enough, if you talk to internal affairs at police departments, the vast majority of the complaints that they get about police are from police. So they report each other. That's a little known fact. Most of the reports don't come from the civilians out there saying, hey, this happened or that happened. Most of the time it's cops saying, hey, this guy was out of line here.
Well, that's